Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are well. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. All right. This was kind of impromptu. I know we had a stream last week, and we usually do it every 2 weeks, but I decided to do one today because we're about halfway through Ramadan, and I just wanted to share something more or less related to it. I've got somebody with us, so I'm just going to bring him on quickly. I wasn't actually planning on bringing in guests today. I just wanted to do this presentation, and that was it. But let's see what our friend here, Jason, has to say. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum to you too.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm good. Halfway through Ramadan, I guess.
Yep, that's right. How's everything going?
Fine. That's pretty fine. Fine. And by the way, I'm that same person who emailed you about the issues with the Quran and I'm having.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. How are you? Hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Good. So, how did you see my answer? Right. I mean, I think I answered you. Were you the same person on who put a comment on one of the videos as well?
I think I am actually.
Yeah. Because when I emailed you, I was like, hey, I think your questions you sound like the same person who I just answered a comment they put on one of the videos. So, how have you been since then? I mean, my reply, did that console you a little bit, or?
Well, I would say it mostly did, and still having a few issues that are being left unanswered.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy to help you if you just like to mention them. What exactly?
Okay. Well, for my issues, it's mainly about all these anti-Islamic polemics. I trust you're aware of those.
I'm aware of some of them, I suppose. I mean, I don't pay much attention to it as much as I used to, so I don't know exactly which ones are you mostly having trouble with.
Well, I would mainly say the ones judging the Quran's preservation, mostly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's the one we talked about a little bit. I replied to you a little bit about that. I in the email I sent you the link to my post, to my Reddit post about it. Did you get a chance to read that?
Yeah, I read a lot of your posts on Reddit actually.
All right. Okay. All right. So when it comes to the preservation of the Quran, it's the main issue really is in the modern age, especially after a lot of missionary activities spread around the world, right? So a lot of missionaries there was a lot of missionary activity towards the Muslim world for a while. Talking about like in the 100 years ago or something like that, right? And that led to the reaction of people like Ahmed Didat. He was the first popular person to come up and start to actually push back against the Christian missionaries. And one of the ways they did that is by talking about how the Quran is perfectly preserved, etc. And that put out this pop view of the preservation of the Quran, this popular view of the preservation of the Quran that's preserved every dot and letter, and that was completely false. Okay, so despite that being popularized by a lot of these preachers, it wasn't a knowledge-based presentation, right? Ahmed Didat probably didn't know, but I mean, did he know much about qira'at or about the history of the Quran or about the manuscripts? He probably didn't, right? And I remember I used to see when I was young these little clips going around from what's his name, Khalid Yasin, who's still active, I think. That preacher Khalid Yasin is still active. But a long time we used to like these clips. Would go around of him talking about how, if you were to give a blank book if all of the Qurans were to disappear now, and you give the blank book to somebody in Africa or in Japan or this or there, they would be able to reproduce the whole Quran, because there are huffaz in all of these countries who know the Quran perfectly well, and that isn't true either, because even if you're a hafiz of the Quran and you know it from the Hafs perspective, let's say, from the Hafs qira'ah, you actually have to learn the rasim that goes with it, right? So there's a whole other thing, somebody who's memorized the Quran, a true person who's really memorized everything there is to know about the Quran. He's memorized the qira'ah and he's memorized the actual rasim, right? The actual consonantal skeleton, right? Because it is different, right? There are parts have you seen, you've almost certainly read, I suppose, Dr. Marim Van Puten's Grace of God article, right?
Oh yeah,
Where,
I know him. Yeah.
yeah, so he shows that very clearly that the copying that was done can be seen clearly, because there are things which are recited the same in different verses but written differently, but how they are written is maintained. So sometimes you have salat with a waw, sometimes you have it with an alif, sometimes you have rahma with a ta marbuta, and sometimes with a ta maftuha, right? Sometimes ni'mah, he did the thing of ni'mah, right? Ni'mah with a ta, and ni'mah with a ta marbuta or ha, right?
Okay.
So you have to learn that as well. If you're going to be somebody who can reproduce the Quran, you have to have memorized that as well, not just the vocalization. But the point is that this was a something which was not the way it was pushed by modern preachers. It's completely alien to how it was understood or known by the actual classical scholars of Islam, right? They never looked at it in these kind of ways at all, right? So that's the main issue, and that's what created a lot of this people having crises of faith when the issue of qira'at came up, right? When that's brought up, if you're somebody who just believed this pop Islam false narrative, then when that's burst by academia, right, then you start to have these crises of faith. But if you know how, if you just know the reality of how it always was from the beginning, then it doesn't become an issue, really, right? It doesn't become an issue. So that a lot of it depends on where have you put your faith, right? It's like, for example, the scientific miracle stuff, right? There are some people who believe in the Quran because of scientific miracles, right? And if that gets pulled away, their faith comes tumbling down. Other people are believing because of the numerical signs or miracles, and if that is shown to be not true, their faith comes tumbling down, right? So you have to be wary of why do you actually have faith in the Quran, right, in the first place, right? Is it all of these just gotcha clips that Muslims use against others? Like our book is perfectly preserved, your one's not perfectly preserved. Our book is scientifically accurate, yours isn't. Ours has these numerical signs, yours doesn't. Is that the reason we have faith in the Quran? Or is it actually because we can hear God speaking to us through it, right? And we can get actual guidance from it. Is it because of what we are learning from the Quran, or is it because of these extra things? Let's say that God hadn't promised to preserve the Quran, right, as is popularly known, and it wasn't preserved. Does that mean now, khalas, you have no faith in it, right? You have no faith that the Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, that the Quran was true revelation. Okay, it wouldn't be an issue really, because you just go. All it would be is you'd be sort of downgraded to how the Bible is now, right? And the Bible as it is now is confirmed by the Quran, right? The Bible right now is not exactly how it was. I mean, this comes back to again really understanding your stuff. Really, the Torah and the Injil were not were not like books revealed. They're not like the Quran basically. And the Injil is a set of spiritual teachings by Isa. Isa was not actually given a book. Like he didn't have a scripture that he went around with. Okay, he had a set of teachings. The Injil was, the good news, or a set of spiritual teachings, right? And the Torah wasn't revealed to Musa, right? In the Quran, the word Musa and Torah never appear in the same ayah anywhere, right? The Torah is just the combined law that was revealed through all of the prophets, right, of Bani Israel, right? So that was that. But anyway, the point is that all that would happen is that the Quran would sort of like be at the same status as the book Bible, right? In that it isn't completely preserved, but there's still guidance in it, right? That's what I would say. I mean, you really have to just reevaluate some of these things. But the main thing when it comes to the preservation of the Quran is, number one, God didn't promise to preserve the Quran. He said the dhikr, and I'm actually going to redo. There was a live stream which I did about dhikr versus Quran, but I had a guest on it, and he played some Quran recitation for an app that he was working on. Because of that, YouTube took that video down because it was flagged as copyright. So I'm going to redo that again, to speak specifically about what is the dhikr, right, in comparison to the Quran. But in summary, dhikr is exactly what it sounds like. Dhikr is the remembrance. The dhikr is that part of the revelation of the tanzil, which is the same and has always been the same, but now we are being reminded of, okay? And that includes stories, like stories of the past. We are reminded of them, right? Those are part of the dhikr as well. But it's the teachings which have always been, right? It's the universal teachings which are within the Quran. That's the dhikr, right? And that's going to be preserved, even if half the Quran were to disappear, a third of it was to disappear. The dhikr would still be there. The dhikr would survive, right? So that's one point. And when it comes to the actual the qira'at, it's painfully obvious if you don't put so much faith in the sab'a ahruf narration, right? The 7 ahruf narrations, that the Prophet taught the Quran in only one way, and that these are just later. This is a later justification, right? The 7 ahruf is a later justification, right? We don't see the Prophet teaching people different ahruf anywhere, right? I don't know. Have you thought about the 7 ahruf hadith? What do you make of it?
Well, wouldn't say much about it. And I mean, I consider myself a Sunni, really, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, look, the 7 ahruf hadith. I mean, it's such a. I was going to say I don't even know if I know I'd be using that word correctly, but it's such a bender of a hadith, right? It's completely thrown the ummah on a loop, right? And you have to understand that the Prophet would not do that, right? That's one thing. You'll not say something so cryptic, nobody understands what it means. Until this day, nobody has a clue what this 7 ahruf is, right? Nobody, right? Suyuti says there's like 40 different interpretations, and he still doesn't know what it means, right? That's one thing. Second thing, the Prophet will not have spent the whole of the time of Mecca, like the main narrations about this have got to do with Umar ibn al-Khattab, right? Umar ibn al-Khattab gets blindsided, like in the last year of the Prophet's life, he suddenly finds out about 7 ahruf. How? Umar was with him from Mecca, right? From Mecca. He wasn't one of the earliest converts, but he converted like on midway through Mecca, right? In Dar al-Arqam, he would be there, very close-knit, small community of believers, right? And he didn't know anything about Sabah Ahruf then. And then all the way through the Medina time, he doesn't know about it, because this hadith, of course, happens after the Fath of Mecca. How do we know that? Because Hisham, the person who Umar was disputing with, he was one of the Tulaqa. He only became Muslim after the conquest of Mecca. Okay? And then what was the Prophet doing? Was he sitting there, twiddling his thumbs, waiting for this conflict to happen? And then say, oh, by the way, the Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf, right? And this is something that he should be teaching from the mimbars. It's something that he should have different people who know the different ahruf. It should be, widespread, right? But instead, it's just this small cluster of narrations, which then become mass transmitted, They become what they say is mass transmitted, but that's only because there's a need for them. Because the Quran proliferated, its recitations proliferated, right? There was a lot of divergences. There became a need for something to justify it, and so that's why this hadith becomes popular. Okay, the hadith becomes popular because of the divergences, right? Later on, people are like, okay, there has to be an explanation for why. Think, okay, sabah ruf, that fills the gap, that provides a justification why that happened. But the Prophet you don't see anything from the seerah anywhere of the Prophet going out of his way to teach 7 ahruf. We don't know about any Sahaba that are said to be known, this person knows all 7 ahruf. No, that's not said about anybody, right? Or this Sahabi is very well versed in this harf, and this Sahabi is very well versed in this harf, right? Or the Prophet sent people to this tribe to teach them this harf because that harf was closer to their language. All of this nonsense that they talk about, that the huruf are, the different recitations are because of different tribes and their linguistics. It's just not true. The Ummah now is much more diverse than the Arabs, and we're all surviving pretty much with hafs, right? Japanese people are reciting hafs, right? Brazilian people are reciting hafs. Everybody's reciting hafs, right? So why would the Arabs need so many ahruf? It makes no sense. And then, of course, when Abu Bakr was collecting the Quran, there was no mention in any of his narrations. There's no mention of the 7 ahruf, right? And then when Uthman is doing, there's no mention of the 7 ahruf. Okay, so it's just a made up narration, right? And it shows actually that it's in terms of the science of hadith, it's very strong, which just shows how bad the science of hadith is. Right, that it has such a strong false positive, it has such a strong false positive. There's just no way that this narration could be true. Okay, what is the actual reason for that to be 7 ahruf? Were any of the previous scriptures sent in more than one harf? There's absolutely no need for this, right? So there's that issue, right? And then when it comes to the manuscript tradition and the rest of it, and what happened after the Prophet passed away, of course, one of the big myths is that the Quran was not written down. Of course, it was written down during the Prophet's lifetime, right? The idea that there wasn't much material for writing, there was plenty of material for writing. It was all over. These were traders. The Prophet was able to equip armies with with mail and swords and this. You think he didn't in that time get enough material to have a full mushaf written? He did, right? Okay. But the issue was the politics after it, right? The politics after it. You might have heard that what's narrated even in Sunni literature is that the first person to collect the mushaf was Ali, right? And that's used as sort of an excuse about why he didn't give bay'ah, which of course even the Sunnis don't accept. But the idea that he was the first one to have a mushaf, right? Well, he wasn't the first one to write a mushaf. The mushaf that he had was the Prophet's mushaf, right? The one which he had written was the Prophet's mushaf, right? And after Abu Bakr became the caliph, he tried to give it over to them, and they said, no, we don't want it, right? لا حاجة لنا فيه, right? They told, we don't want it, right? This is in, I think it's in Musannaf Abu Shayba, right? That he brought it, and then they refused. The reason why they refused it is because, of course, he hadn't given bay'ah at the time. There was still that rift, right? And they didn't want to take the Quran from it, and it would be like a minna. What's in English? It would be like he would have done a favor to them, right, to the new caliphate. So they refused it, and then later on they got Zayd to collect the Quran. And my reading of the whole incident with Zayd and how he started collecting it from really base material, right? Shoulder blade stuff and this and that. Again, I see this as because people were not responding. People weren't being helpful. They were giving him the leftovers that they had, right? They were giving him the leftovers. They weren't giving him their actual masahif, because different Sahaba had actual full mushafs, right? People were giving him just the little leftover things that they had. They weren't being very helpful to the whole to the whole thing, because you know, again, there was a lot of this has to do with history. There was a lot of tension at the time. Okay.
Right.
So you know, giving him like the, you know, little things that they'd written here or there or wherever. But you know, there were plenty of masahif around at the time. You know, they even have the hadith from the Prophet saying that, you know, that among the things that will benefit a believer after he dies is a mushaf which he has left as an inheritance, right? Because they were there, right? The masahif were there. So they chose Zayd because he was young and could be more easily controlled, rather than some of the older kutab, older like scribes, right? The Prophet's primary scribe from the time of Mecca, the one who wrote for him more Quran than anybody else, was Ali, right? And then among the Ansar, right, there was Ubay, right? From the Muhajirin, there was also Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, right, from the time of Mecca, writing for the Prophet. There were lots who were writing for the Prophet, right? Zayd was like the youngest of the scribes, right? He was a kid basically, right? But that's why he was chosen, right? Because, you know, he also, because he spoke out in the Saqifa of you know, the time of the election of Abu Bakr. He was the one who spoke out against the Ansar in favor of the Muhajirin, right? Even though he was from Khazraj, right? So he was one who spoke. He was one who said, you know, he said that, you know, we were the Ansar of the Messenger of Allah, and so we should just be the Ansar. We should be happy to just be the Ansar of the Imam, and the Imam should be from the Muhajirun, right? So that's another reason why they were comfortable having Zayd do this project. Okay.
Yeah.
So you know, there's this, and then of course, what happens to the Mus'haf? The Mus'haf gets hidden away for the rest of Umar's caliphate, for you know, 6 years or so of Uthman's, and you know, as if nobody could have predicted what would happen, right? Why hide it? Why, once the Mus'haf was made, why didn't they just have the other Sahaba come and check it over, bring it to the mosque, let everybody come and read it, check it over, make copies right there and then, right? And as the Muslims expanded, you know, there would be copies of the Mus'haf where they went. But you know, it's like, who couldn't have predicted what would happen, right? You make a copy of the Quran, then you hide it away in Hafsa's bedroom or something. For her, well, of course, what would happen happened, and it wasn't even Uthman who took the initiative and found out about it. He had to be told, right? He had to be told by Hudhayfa, right? If Hudhayfa hadn't said anything, would Uthman have done anything? I mean, it's really they bungled it, basically. To put it in a blunt way, right? There was no worse way that the collection and preservation of the Quran could have been done and still get done than what they did. Right? I don't think there's a worse way they could have went. So it is an issue. I know it's an issue, but it is what it is in the end. Also, you know, Uthman, when he has that committee to write the Quran. Look who it's made out of. It's made out of all tulaqa, right? It's made out of all these tulaqa, apart from Zayd. He's the only like early Sahabi there. Okay. Also, some narrations mention, you know, Khalid bin Sa'id bin As. But you know, that's not Umayyad, right? He was one of the Salihin from Bani Umayyah, but you know, he's probably there because of his father, right? Zayd ibn As was one of the tyrants, right? He would later be put as the governor of Medina between him and Marwan, right? Muawiyah would keep on flipping between him and Marwan. But you know, the rest were just basically tulaqa. Why didn't he call up? And then of course there was the issue of Ibn Mas'ud, right? In Kufa, right? Who was you know, who spoke out against the Mus'haf of Zayd. Okay, well, why not just call him over and say, look, be involved, like add him to the committee, right? So it was just a complete mess. It was a complete mess. And then when they finally made the copies, and we don't know how many copies were made, right? It seems to be there was 4. You're right. From the material evidence we have now, it seems to be there were 4. And even those 4 copies were not identical, right? There were mistakes between them. There were like discrepancies. But you know, some narrations say there's 5, some say there's 6, some say there's 7, right? And a disagreement I have with Miriam van Putten is he is convinced that all of the manuscripts that we have, they descend from those archetypes of Uthman. I'm not so convinced, because it seems like nobody cared about them, because very quickly they disappear, right? We don't see in historical record people lining up to copy from the mushafs that Uthman sent out, right? We hear about them getting made, we hear about them getting sent out, and then they simply just disappear. Like nobody knows where they are. By all rights, we should have those masahif that Uthman made, we should have them in our museums, right? We should have them now. We should be able to look at them now. We don't have them because nobody cared, it seems, right? And it seemed like it wasn't important. Okay, and then of course there's the issue of how many, Uthman ordered the other masahif to be burnt, but that couldn't have happened, right? I mean, we don't see, again, in historical record, we don't see this mass burning. Like there's no narrations of people burning the masahif, right, that they had with them. We don't see that. Burning the masahif and then going out to make fresh copies from one of the copies of Uthman. Where is that in the literature? It's not there. And then, of course, there's a huge section of people who were upset with Uthman, right? And when among the rebels who came out against Uthman, there were those who said, hey, one of the charges they brought out against Uthman was that he burnt the Quran, that he burnt the Masahif. Well, if these people from this, if these people from this region of the Ummah, let's say Kufa or Egypt, right, are complaining that Uthman did that, what does that mean? That means they themselves didn't do that. They didn't follow that order, right? Because they wouldn't have like burned their Masahif, then come out to Uthman and say, hey, why did you burn the Masahif? Well, you guys obeyed it, So it shows that a good section of the Ummah did not follow through, if that even happened. Okay, but Uthman didn't enforce it, right? We don't see Uthman having people going around, enforcing the burning of the Masahif, or you don't see that. So it's at a bit of a mess making sense of it, I suppose, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I think it's just a testament to the mushaf's, the Quran's preservation, that it made it through all of that, right?
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
I mean, it's amazing that it made it through all of that. Okay, amazing that the whole ummah still agrees on the mushaf exactly as it is, right? There's nobody says that the verse is missing, right? Apart from the Quran, modern Quran is now, because of the counting of the 19, etc. But nobody says this verse was added, or there's a missing verse. That doesn't exist. The other remarkable thing, which I think is a real testament to the hifz of the Quran, is that we don't have a single narration, whether sahih, whether da'if, whether mawdu', nothing of the Prophet saying that a verse is abrogated by another verse, right? So we don't have that, despite the plethora of talk of abrogation, right? It seems nobody even made a fabricated narration, because of course I don't believe in abrogation at all, but nobody even made a fabricated hadith saying on the Prophet's lips saying that such and such a verse is abrogated, right? I mean, that's amazing, right? Considering all of the fabricated narrations that were made and the lies put on the Prophet's lips, God seems to have protected him from having a lie put, or let's say the Quran. God protected the Quran because, in the end, he wasn't protected from having lies put on his lips, right? But God protected the Quran from lies being ascribed to the Prophet regarding verses being abrogated.
Right.
I mean, if you want to have faith in the preservation of the Quran, for me, that's a very big one. I think that is when you know the history of the hadiths, and you start to see how much of even Sahih hadiths are fabricated. That's a huge one. That doesn't exist. There's no narrations of the Prophet saying, this verse or that verse is abrogated. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. Okay, my one question is regarding the Quran and the Araf. What are your opinions on the works of the Harvard scholar Shadi S. E.H. Nasir.
Yeah. Dr. Shah. I haven't read his book yet. I haven't read it yet. He's working mostly on the after the canonization, right? That's what I understand, because of course, even though we say we have Hafs, right? But even Hafs we don't have. It's not like we have. It's not like Hafs wrote down his own like qira'ah, right? Even Hafs, we have narrations. We rely on narrations which say how Hafs recited this verse or that verse or that verse, right? And so, as far as I know, what he worked on was the second codification after that, right? So the chains of narrations going from Hafs down until it was actually written down, or from the Qur'an, any of the Qur'an, down to when they were actually recorded. Is that right?
Yeah.
But I haven't actually read his work.
I see. Well, I seem to find his work highly problematic due to I've seen him around on anti-Islamic polemical channels a few times.
Yeah. That's another reason why I didn't like. He came up on that. What's it called? Some channel called Islam Critiqued or something.
And Apostate Prophet, that one too.
And Apostate Prophet as well. Yeah. So I don't put much. I don't see it as very genuine. Like even on there, I think he speaks like an academic. But why on these channels, right?
Right. He did show up on Myth Vision as well.
Myth Vision is only a little better in my opinion, to be honest. I mean, it's better in many ways, but it's like it's still not somebody who is. I don't know. I mean, I like some ways I like him a lot. The guy was Derek, right? His name is from Myth Vision.
Yes.
I like him a lot, but in other ways I see that he is very much so in almost the same category of trying to just show, trying to disprove Islam or these kind of things, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. By the way, one further question. Do you have any book recommendations that further address these certain topics?
I don't actually, to be honest. I mean, I don't. I mean, I wish more people would work on them, but I don't. I mean, I know what's his name. There is one person who I'm reading a bit about. I still haven't read his book though, so that's why I don't remember exactly. But he's the one who did the you might know it, the Codex of Ali, right? He did something about the Codex of Ali. What was his name? Just give me a second. See if I can find it on my phone. Hold on. The Integrity of the Quran. Yeah, that's it. Integrity of the Quran by Saifuddin Kara.
Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah,
him. Oh, you emailed him, yeah?
Yeah, I spoke to him sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. What have you learned from him? What have you taken away from him?
Well, let me hold on. Let me just
read that book of his, The Integrity of the Quran.
Oh yeah, I've seen his work. Has pretty interesting stuff in it, I must say. But yeah, I've learned a lot about that. Emailed him once on a few Quranic issues. He recommended me a few works from Walid Salih and Yasin Dutan on scholars like that. But overall, his book has been pretty helpful towards me for these issues. What are your thoughts on?
I mean, I haven't read it yet. I mean, I've still got it on my to-read list. I think I started to read part of it, but then I stopped. So even if I remember parts of it, I need to go back and reread it. But I mean, you never actually mentioned. So what exactly is the main issue that you have with the whole issue of the qira'at and the preservation? What are you finding most problematic? Is there any specific sticking point?
Well, I guess I thought it would be the way polemics are misusing academic works mainly Shelley Nasser, probably really due to the fact his work appears on so many anti-Islamic platforms like Islam Critiqued. And his main topics are, of course, the Qur'an and the Aruf, which many polemics assume is important to Islamic tradition. That's basically the main point I have.
Yeah. I mean, from that angle, I really think that the issue is, I mean, if Muslims hadn't gone around talking about how there's only one Quran, or if that pop view of the Quran hadn't been pushed around by Muslims so much, you wouldn't see this stuff on anti-Islamic websites, right?
Yeah.
If Muslims from the get-go had just been knowledgeable about the tradition, they had known, yes, and they had mentioned, yes, we have ahruf, yes, even the manuscripts that we have, so there are small differences, yes, the qira'at exist, and there are some small differences in some words which have different meanings in different qira'at. If that had been part of just being known and accepted by Muslims from the beginning, it wouldn't appear on anti-Islamic websites, right? It wouldn't appear as an issue, because it isn't an issue, right? It just is the fact that it is, right? It's just what it is, and that is part of our history, right? And like I mentioned, our family believe that it's a failing of the early ummah. So if someone just wants to just blindly defend the early ummah, right? Then it will be an issue as well, right? If you want to just say no, that they did the best way. I mean, I hear this sometimes, right? People saying that the Sahaba did the best way. They didn't do the best way, not at all. They did not do the best way of preserving the Quran at all. They occupied themselves with invasions and conquering, and invading all of North Africa and here, and all of that they did, right? And they sidelined the Quran, right? Right. Do we have any of the Sahaba writing down their own qira'ah, for example?
Don't.
Right?
Sure.
Huh? We don't have it, right? Why is it that our qira'at are according to Hafs and Shu'bah and Warsh? Why? Right? Why not at least our qira'at in the mosques now we're reciting according to Abu Bakr or Uthman or Ali, or why not? Well, because they didn't bother as much, right? They didn't really deliver the Quran to the next generation in a way that it would be completely imprinted in the Ummah, with all of these, like every dot and letter and syllable, etc. They could have, but they were busy with other things.
Yes, I suppose.
Yeah, that's about it. All right, okay. I'm going to actually get on with the presentation, but feel free to come on probably next week, right? And let me know if you by email or by comments on my channel, how you're getting on with all of this stuff.
Thank you. Well, I'll best leave now.
All right, okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Ramadan Kareem, by the way.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Okay, bye. Okay, goodbye.
Right. All right. Okay. So I haven't checked the comments, but let me just quickly. Assalamu alaikum to everybody who's here. Marco Jibat. Alhamdulillah, going well. 2 weeks already. Yeah, it's not 2 weeks, it's 1 week. I just thought this. Just wanted to do an extra one now. It was supposed to be quicker, but I did promise his brother that I would that he could come on and would speak on these issues that he was having trouble on. Unfortunately, nope, there's no new news on Hassan al-Maliki. Unfortunately. Is Ramadan from sunset? So the fasting is from Fajr. The traditional way of fasting is correct. It is up to sunset. When the verse fast in the morning, exactly according to Quran. So when it talks about the fast starting, when the white thread and the black thread become clear, of dawn become clear, that is basically, if you know, imagine that you are in a sort of rural environment, right? And when Fajr approaches, what happens is you start to see a white horizon, right? The line, horizon line, right? So you can talk about, that's what we say, horizon line, right? In Arabic, khat is line as well, right? Khayt, khat comes from the same thing. So it's basically when you start to be able to distinguish the horizon line from where the sun is going to appear from versus the opposite horizon, right? Where you know the opposite horizon is going to be, you're going to have a line which is, you know, the horizon line is going to be darker, right? So once you start to be able to distinguish the horizon from where the sun is going to come from versus the other horizon, and you can see that, you know, that one looks white and this one sort of looks black, right? It doesn't have to be exactly white and black, but you see that this one is light and this one is dark, right? That's when you start the fast, right? That's when the fast starts. And you do it all the way up till sunset. Okay, so night, Quranically, is when you can no longer see the sun. When you can no longer see the sun. So, you know, some people think that you have to fast till it is dark outside. No, that's not it, right? Night doesn't mean it's dark. Night means when you can't see the sun, because the sign of daytime is the sun. You know, in the Quran. And the Quran talks about how the night covers the sun. So when you can't see the sun anymore, when it's covered by night, right? So there's that. Hey, assalamu alaikum, Dragon Light. Jazakallah khair. All right. Okay. I'm gonna come back to some of these comments later. I just want to go through this presentation, and then I'll come back. I'll try to come back to some of these comments, if possible. Okay. So what I really wanted to talk about today was, well, I've named this Paradise Lost and Gained. You'll quickly see what it's really about, and its importance to Ramadan. So going back to the story of Adam and Shaitan. So you have this in the verse, and this is in Surah Al-A'raf, where it talks about, after speaking about the story of Adam, it says, يا بني آدم قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشة ولباس التقوى ذلك خير. Right, O children of Adam, we have bestowed upon you clothing to conceal your private parts and as adornments. But the clothing of taqwa, that is the best. Right, the clothing of taqwa, that is the best. ذلك خير. ذلك من آيات الله. ذلك من آيات الله لعلهم يتذكرون. That is from the signs of Allah that perhaps they will remember. Okay, and it says, O children of Adam, let not Shaitan tempt you as he removed your parents from Jannah, from paradise, stripping them of their clothing to show them their private parts. Indeed, he sees you, he and his tribe, from where you do not see them. Indeed, we have made the devils allies to those who do not have faith. So the clothing here that's mentioned in this part of the verse, that Shaitan stripped the clothing from Adam and Eve, right? That clothing is what's mentioned in the previous verse, being the clothing of taqwa, right? The clothing of taqwa. It wasn't really that, of course, Shaitan stripped off their clothing. It wasn't really that he to show them their sort of a private part. Really, so atihima means their ugliness, their evil, right? their ugliness. That's when the taqwa was stripped from them, right? They saw their evil tendencies, right? They saw their evil tendencies, right? So that was part of what basically led Adam to be expelled from Jannah, right? The clothing was the clothing of taqwa that was stripped from them. Now, how was that stripped from them? It was from mainly through deception, right? So here we have it, the beginning. So this verse here, what I mentioned is verse 26, 27, which comes after the actual verses which talk about what happened. What happened was, فَوَسْوَسَ لَهُمَا الشَّيْطَانُ لِيُبْدِيَ لَهُمَا مَا وُرِيَ عَنْهُمَا مِنْ سَوْآتِهِمَا. But Shaitan whispered to them to make apparent to them that which was concealed from them of their evilness, not really private parts. Okay, so that ugliness was concealed by their taqwa. So it was covered by their taqwa. The taqwa of Allah, their taqwa covered that, right? And Shaitan stripped that away from them, right? How did he strip that away from them? By deception mostly, right? So he says, your Lord did not forbid you from this tree except that you become angels or become of the immortal. He took their minds onto something else, right? Onto these kind of desires, right? The desire to become immortal, the desire to become what they aren't, right? And he swore to them, by Allah, I am indeed to you from among the sincere advisors, okay? So he made them fall through deception, right? Through deception. And they tasted of the tree and the rest of it, okay? So the point is this, and again, deception. This is another verse. فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانُ. So Shaitan whispered to him and he said, O Adam, shall I not direct you to the tree of eternity and possession that will not deteriorate? وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى. Don't you want that? So he put for them, he made them focus on these desires, right? And that is how their taqwa was stripped away, right? Their taqwa was stripped away through these kind of deceptions, right? And also through their forgetfulness, right? The ghafla. So another verse says, وَلَقَدْ أَحِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. And we had already taken a promise from Adam, like we had a covenant, we had told him, right? But he forgot, and we did not find in him any real determination, right? He didn't have any real determination. So this was part of basically the covenant that was mentioned, was this part, okay? But I don't want to dwell on that, right? And so basically what I want to say here is that, a part of the story of Adam here is that it was taqwa that was removed from him, and that is why he was expelled from Jannah, right? And so, of course, one of the ways that it was done, like I said, it was through forgetfulness, through ghafla. And so, one of the ways to regain taqwa is through dhikr, the opposite of forgetfulness, the opposite of being heedless is dhikr, right? And in the Qur'an, it's said often that dhikr leads to taqwa, right? And so, paradise was lost because taqwa was lost. Okay, it was a stripping away of the garment of taqwa that led to Adam's expulsion from Jannah. And so it is via taqwa that we will re-enter it. It's via taqwa that we re-enter Jannah. And this is mainly what I'm going to be showing here in this presentation. All of the verses which talk about how it's the muttaqeen who enter Jannah. It's the people of taqwa who enter Jannah, right? If you were going to give a simple answer for who are the saved sect are the muttaqeen, right? God continuously, and you'll see how many verses we're going to go through here, talks about Jannah being for the people of taqwa and for taqwa. Okay? So taqwa gained is Jannah or paradise gained. Okay? Here's one of these verses. Ya bani Adama, imma ya'tiyannakum imma ya'tiyannakum rusulun minkum yaqussuna alaykum ayati فَمَنِ اتَّقَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Right? So this comes right on the heels of those verses that we looked at before, the stripping away of taqwa from Adam, right? And the fall of Adam. And Allah is here speaking to all of Bani Adam. He's saying, when there comes to you messengers from among yourselves relating to you my verses, my signs, then whoever has taqwa and reforms, there will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve. Right? That's one of the verses. Here's another one, a very key one. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ عِدَّةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Right? And hasten to forgiveness from your Lord, and a garden, Jannah, as wide as the heavens and earth, prepared for the muttaqeen. Right? Who is it prepared for? It's prepared for the muttaqeen. The Jannah is prepared for the muttaqeen. And then it gives some descriptions here. Now, of course, the descriptions of taqwa, just like the descriptions of the mu'mineen, they're not exhaustive in any one place in the Quran, right? We have, for example, in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, it describes muttaqeen there as well, right? And it's a different description from here, right? But that doesn't mean that you have to have all of it to be considered of the muttaqeen, right? You don't have to have all of it. You can have just look at one list in the Quran which describes the muttaqeen. If you have that, then you are of the muttaqeen. In this case here, what is it saying? It's saying الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. Those who spend during ease and hardship, and who restrain their anger, literally swallow their rage, and who pardon people, who forgive people. And Allah loves the doers of good. And this is another thing where you'll find that the muttaqeen are constantly linked with the muhsineen. Or taqwa is often linked with ihsan. Okay? And then the verse continues. I'm not going to read all of it. You can read it later if you like. Another verse here. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. That home of the hereafter, we assign it to those who do not desire exaltedness upon the earth, nor corruption. And the best outcome is for who? For the muttaqeen. Right? So again, this is the same thing. The Darul Akhirah, next life, it's really for the muttaqeen. Another verse, وَزُخْرُفًا, right? It's continuing from the previous verse, and gold ornaments. But all of that is not but the enjoyment of worldly life. وإن كل ذلك لما متاع الحياة الدنيا والآخرة عند ربك لمن للمتقين. And the hereafter with your Lord is for who? It's for the muttaqeen. Another verse, إن للمتقين عند ربهم جنات النعيم. Truly for the muttaqeen with their Lord are gardens of paradise, for the muttaqeen. Okay. Another one, إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا. Indeed, the muttaqeen have attainment, or have like one, مَفَازًا. Okay. Another one here, زُيِنَ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Right. Beautified for those who have kafaru is the life of this world, and they ridicule those who have faith. But those who have taqwa are above them on the day of judgment. And it's interesting here. It doesn't say وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَوْقَهُم. Right? So it says that the الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا are ridiculing الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. But then it doesn't say and الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا are going to be above them. It says الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا are above them. Right? They're going to be above الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا and الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Right? But those who have taqwa are above them on the day of judgment. And Allah gives provisions to whom He wills without account. Another one, لكن الذين اتقوا ربهم لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها نزلا من عند الله وما عند الله خير للأبرار. But those who had taqwa of their Lord, and here now we have not just taqwa in the sort of like universal sense. Now here we have taqwa of your Lord, right? So just like we have sometimes iman by itself, and sometimes we have iman billah, and sometimes we have iman billahi wal yawm al-akhir, right? You have faith, and then there's faith in Allah, and then there's faith in Allah on the last day, and there's even in the Quran just faith in the last day. Okay, taqwa can sometimes just be presented as this universal virtue, and sometimes it's about taqwa of Allah specifically, or of their Lord. Right. In this case, it's taqwa of their Lord. Right. مثل الجنة التي وعد المتقون. The example, i.e. the description of paradise which is promised to the muttaqeen, or which the muttaqeen have been promised. So who have been promised Jannah? Who are the ones who have been promised Jannah? Is it the mu'mineen? No, it's the muttaqeen, right? It's the muttaqeen, the people of taqwa. Okay, تجري من تحتها الأنهار أكلها دائم وظلها تلك عقبى الذين اتقوا وعقبى الكافرين النار. Okay, and it describes it. It is, beneath it rivers flow, its fruit is lasting, and its shade. That is the consequent for those who had taqwa, and the consequent for the kafirin is the fire. Another verse here. I'm not going to read the whole of it, but at the end of it, what we have is قل متاع الدنيا قليل, say to them, O Muhammad, the enjoyment of this world is just little. والآخرة خير لمن اتقى, right? And the hereafter is better for he who practices taqwa. Okay, ولا تظلمون فتيلا, and you will not be shown any injustice. Here again, وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين, and paradise will be brought near to who? To the muttaqeen, right? Jannah is brought towards the muttaqeen, not it doesn't mention any other groups. I mean, you don't find in the Quran even Jannah is for the muhsineen, even though yes, of course, but it's a theme throughout the Quran that the Jannah is linked with the muttaqeen. Okay, it's not linked even with any of the other, the list that I put that's in the Quran about all of those whom God loves, right? Al-Muqsiteen, Al-Mutatahhirin, Tawabin, Al-Sabirin. All of these groups are people whom God loves. But Jannah is always linked with the Muttaqeen, right? It's not really linked with any other group, right? Here again, وَأُزْلِفَتِ الْجَنَّةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ, and paradise will be brought near to the Muttaqeen, not far. And again here, تِلْكَ الْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي نُورِثُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا مَنْ كَانَ تَقِيًّا. That is paradise which we give as inheritance to those of our servants who, whoever practiced taqwa, whoever had taqwa, man kana taqiyya, whoever was a person of taqwa. Okay, those are the ones who will inherit Jannah. Here's another one for رَبِّكَ لَنَحْشُرَنَّهُمْ وَالشَّيَاطِينَ, and it continues up until the end, and it says ثُمَّ نُنَجِّي الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَنَذَرُ الظَّالِمِينَ فِيهَا جِثِيًّا. Right, and then we will save those who had taqwa and leave the wrongdoers within hell on their knees. And these verses are taken sometimes to refer to the sirat above hell, right, the bridge above hell. I don't really accept that, but some people use it like that. Here again, لكن الذين اتقوا ربهم لهم غرف من فوقها غرف, right? But those who had taqwa of their Lord, for them are chambers above them, chambers built high, beneath which rivers flow. That is the promise of Allah. Allah does not fail in His promise. So again, it's for those of taqwa. Okay, here's another one. وَيُنَجِّي اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَيُنَجِّي اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا بِمَفَازَتِهِمْ لَا يَمَسُّهُمْ سُوءٌ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. And Allah will save those who had taqwa. By their attainment, no evil will touch them, nor will they grieve. Okay. Another one. This is from Surah Al-Layl. We say, جنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى. But the practitioner of taqwa, right, will avoid it. He will avoid hell, will not go to hell. Okay, he who gives from his wealth to purify himself, which is the zakat, and not given for anyone who has done him a favor to be rewarded, but only seeking the face, i.e. the acceptance of his Lord Most High, and he is going to be satisfied. And here's the one which I always point to when mentioning how Jannah is according to your deeds, and that in the end it's for the muhsineen and people who do ihsan, and of course that means for the people of taqwa, ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى. And to Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth, whatever is in the earth, that He may recompense those who do evil with what they have done and recompense those who do good with the best. Those who avoid the major sins and immoralities, only committing the slight ones, indeed your Lord is vast in forgiveness. Inna rabbaka wasi' al-maghfirah. He was most knowing of you when He produced you from the earth and when you were just fetuses in the wombs of your mothers. So do not claim yourselves to be pure. He is most knowing of those who practice taqwa. Right? فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنِ اتَّقَى. He knows those who have taqwa, who had practiced taqwa. Another one, وَسِيقَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا رَبَّهُمْ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ زُمُرًا. And those who had taqwa of their Lord will be driven, will be taken to paradise in groups, right, in crowds. Okay, so again, people have taqwa linked with Jannah. And here, last one I think I have here, yes, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Okay, emphasizing that taqwa is always linked with the muhsinin, very often in the Quran. Indeed, Allah is with those who have taqwa and those who are doers of good. I think in this these slides I put in pretty much every verse which talks about the muttaqin being in Jannah, but there might be others. So very quickly, what is taqwa really? Taqwa is in the heart, right? So taqwa exists in the heart. The Quran mentions فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ, right? Taqwa really resides in the heart, and it is the Quranic term for what has been traditionally been called, especially by the Sufis, muraqabah, right? Muraqabah means a type of mindful watchfulness, right? A raqib is somebody who watches, right? Muraqabah is to be watchful and watching, okay? To be conscious, mindful, okay? And muraqabatullah means having that mindful watchfulness or consciousness of God. And hence the most accurate usual translation of it, you will see, is God consciousness. The taqwa is God consciousness. That's its inner reality. Okay, when you talk about what taqwa really is, it's in the heart, and that's what it is. It's this God consciousness, or just, it doesn't have to be to God. When you talk about taqwa of Allah, yes, that's God consciousness. When you talk about taqwa in the general sense, it's just having this watchfulness, okay? This mindfulness, this being present and being sort of like careful as well, right? Which takes us back to Adam, okay? His mistake was having that taqwa, that watchfulness, that God consciousness stripped away from him by shaitan pointing him to something else, pointing him to, hey, you know, you could have a kingdom which will never go away, or possessions which will never go away. You could be one of the angels. You could live forever, right? All of these things. And what fasting does is, of course, fosters your taqwa, because it will foster that God consciousness, right? If throughout the day you're aware that you are fasting, right? And whenever you're hungry, you're like, okay, why am I hungry? Okay, I'm hungry because I'm fasting. Okay, and that fosters this awareness. Why are you fasting? I'm fasting for Allah, right? I'm fasting for God, right? It fosters this taqwa, this awareness of having this mindfulness of your Creator, okay, around you, or just mindfulness in general, right? So again, one of the things that when people talk about when you fast, you remember that other people who are hungry in the world, right? And so you become more mindful of that as well. So taqwa's manifestations outwardly at its lowest level or strength, it is the God consciousness in the heart that restrains you from harm and aggression. So, you know, this is something which Hassan al-Maliki pointed out, that taqwa in the Quran is juxtaposed with udwan. It's juxtaposed with udwan, aggression or causing harm, right? So what does that mean? It means the opposite of udwan is taqwa. These are opposites, okay? Well, if udwan is aggression and causing harm, then the minimum taqwa must be that you refrain, right? That's the minimum. The minimum taqwa is to restrain yourself from udwan. It is it's taqwa's lowest outward manifestation from the inner reality that is in the heart, right? So you have this in your heart, and it will prevent you from actually harming other people. Okay, its highest outward manifestation, due to the heart being filled with taqwa, is the very opposite of harming and aggressing, which is to actually do good to others. Rather than harming somebody, you now do good to them. You do not just good, the best, right? Ihsan, right? To be of the muhsinin, the doers of good, of perfection, of beauty, right? Remember, there's this idea, which is sort of like, it is the Quranic concept as well, that morality is like a branch of aesthetics. That a good deed is actually a beautiful deed, right? You know, we look at a good deed as something beautiful, something nice, right? So, you know, harming and aggressing and doing that sort of thing to people, that's ugly, right? Whereas doing good to them, that's ihsan, okay? So the highest outward manifestation of taqwa is ihsan, okay? And that's again why ihsan is linked with taqwa so often in the Quran, muhsinin and muttaqeen, okay? And between these two levels, right, are the levels of birr in the Quran, right? So the Quran talks about birr, right? So in the famous ayah of birr, لَيْسَ الْبِرْ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبْلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Birr is not that you turn your face to the right or the left, but birr is, and then it lists through many different virtues, many different things, including praying, fasting, including even fighting in battles, giving in charity, keeping your oaths, your pledges, returning what's entrusted to you, all of that. And at the end of it says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. They are the ones who were honest, who had honesty, and they are the ones who have taqwa. They are of the muttaqeen, right? So birr is also linked with taqwa. And the way I visualize it, again, like I said, you have taqwa at the lowest level, which is just to refrain from harms and committing harm and aggression. Then you have different types of piety, of good deeds, which are birr, right? And right at the peak, at the top, you have ihsan. Okay, you have ihsan. So those are the outer manifestations of taqwa. Okay, and that's the end of what I wanted to show. Okay. All righty then. So if there's something that somebody has to ask, please hop on quickly. Let me see. Okay, we have Ashraf here. Tabih is what you... Tasbih, yeah? Tasbih. Yeah, I do that, for example, yes. Why wouldn't you be able to do that? Subhanallah, Subhanallah 33 times, you know, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 33 times, and finish the 100 by La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lahu, lahu al-mulku wa lahu al-hamdu wa ala kulli shay'in qadir. I do that after every salah, you know, and I recite Ayat al-Kursi after every salah, and, you know, I do salawat also after every salah. Salat on the Prophet, I mean. Yeah, without any wudu, without any rak'ah, right? Yes, without any wudu or and without any rak'ah, yes, you can. Well, was that not meant for me? All right, okay. Does anybody if anybody has a question or something they want me to answer, because I don't want to go back all the way through the chat, just copy and paste it again. I'll give you a minute to do that. Otherwise, I think we'll call it a night. Thank you to the 9 people who are still with me. Huh? Okay. Yeah, this presentation, I took it actually from this note. So at the end of it, if you can see that this is actually a separate note on my Obsidian. And I was just gathering the verses regarding Jannah being for the people of Taqwa. And I decided to put it into this kind of presentation, link it back to Adam alayhi salam and his stripping away of taqwa from him. And so for us, it's to acquire taqwa. You know, Ramadan is for taqwa. It's for acquiring taqwa. To acquire, we will not be able to enter Jannah until we gain the garment of taqwa, right? We need to gain the garment of taqwa. You know, you have that also, that verse, لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. You will not attain birr until you spend of that which you love, right? And you know, you can link that with the idea of taqwa as well. All right, okay. It doesn't look like anybody has any question to put forward, so let's end it there. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, we'll have another live stream next week. Oh, there we go. Just got that in. Are there any meditation practices that are more Quranic than others? No, not really. There are some which are mentioned, right? الذين يتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض, right? ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. So there are some examples of meditation, subjects for meditation in the Quran. But there's not really something that you have to sort of like you have to do. But it's definitely worthwhile taking those different verses and actually using them for meditation. So there's that famous one, إن في خلق السماوات والأرض لآيات لأولي الألباب. There's that which are at the end of Surah Imran. And then there's, you pull out the verse now. بين السماء والأرض. Yeah, so the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 2, 164, right? إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار والفلك التي تجري في البحر بما ينفع الناس. So this is given forward as something for people to ponder over. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of night and day, and the great ships which sail through the sea with that which benefits people, and what Allah has sent down from the heavens of rain, giving life thereby to the earth after its lifelessness, and in dispersing therein every kind of moving creature, and his directing of the winds and the clouds controlled between the heavens and the earth are signs for people who use their reason. Okay, so that those are things that you could take to meditate upon, and there are other verses like that. The tree is linked to fasad. The angels hinted at the bloodshed in history concerning this business of device. All right, okay. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, what was linked about the tree to its fasad? The tree was for eternal rule, kingdom, eternal life. Yeah, but I mean that's what Shaitan said, right? And he was lying, wasn't he? فَدَلَّهُمَا بِغُرُورٍ. He tricked them. So yeah, they wanted eternal life, eternal kingdom. That took them away from their taqwa. So that was one of the ways through which their taqwa was stripped away from them. Their mindfulness of God, they forgot, right? This is what the angels knew about. Okay. All right. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for that. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm going to call it a night now. Take care of yourselves and see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.